Randy Marion Chevrolet in Statesville, Randy Marion Ford Lincoln. You know where we are?
Get in to Randy Marion Chevrolet, Randy Marion Ford in Statesville.
We have 1 hour on the scoreboard. That's the show you're listening to right here on WSIC 844 Studio 4 gets you into the program. Like I said, 1 hour. We have 1 hour to go over everything going on in the world of sports today. And boy, oh boy, let me tell you, there is a lot to cover. It seems like everybody, yes, I mean everybody, is playing in high school sports playoffs this evening. Baseball, softball, women's soccer. I mean, it is all happening tonight. We have regionals coming up in women's soccer. This is the 4th round. The winners move on to the regional round. In baseball, game number 2 of the regional round, game 1 earlier in the week. And in softball, same story. We have game 2s going on tonight. NASCAR Cup Series racing heads to Charlotte Motor Speedway for the Coca-Cola 600. And let me tell you, the weather report for Concord, North Carolina has been all over the place over the past few days. The weather report for Speedway, Indiana, though, where Indianapolis Motor Speedway is located, has been pretty steady in the thought that there will be rain coming to that racetrack. How will that affect Kyle Larson and the double? It's hard to say. It seems like Rick Hendrick wants him to race at Indy, but also obviously needs him at Charlotte. So we'll see what happens. It is going to be an interesting Sunday when it comes to the world of motorsports. Monaco, bright and early in the Formula One world. Then we head to Indianapolis for the Indy 500, which you can listen to right here on WSIC. Coverage beginning at 11. And then the night race. Well, the day race to a night race. The Coca-Cola 600. Coverage of that beginning at 5 o'clock here on WSIC. We had NHL playoffs last night. We had NBA playoffs last night. A couple of game ones, dueling game ones, if you will. And one of them was a lot more entertaining than the other one. Which one was that? Well, you're just going to have to wait and see, because 2 game ones last night. We have a game 2 in the NBA tonight and a game 1 in the NHL tonight. We talked a little bit yesterday about the NFL. 18-game schedule, new first down markers. How is all of that going to work out when we get to the NFL season? Not really sure. Also, it seems like, according to the NFL, Taylor Swift has an influence on the NFL schedule. Yes, you heard me correctly. Taylor Swift could possibly be dictating where the Chiefs go and when they go. If we have time, we'll get to that. That's more of a fun story. You know, we got a lot of other news to get to, not only from last night, but also today. There is some news in the world of sports. The Cleveland Cavaliers. Yeah, I know you might not have expected for them to be in the news today. They got beat 4-1 in the second round of the NBA playoffs. Well, they ended up firing their head coach, J.B. Bickerstaff, after 5 seasons, which I guess 5 seasons, it's time to find a new head coach. But in those 5 seasons, he finished as the 5th most winning coach in Cleveland history. We'll get to all of that. a little bit later on in the show. But before we do, we got to talk about what's going on in the world of high school baseball. Starting with the 1A brackets, we are in the regionals, game number 2. Game 1 in the 1A bracket was won by Uwharrie Charters. They took down Mount Airy 4-0. We do have game number 2 later on tonight. Yes, you heard me correctly. It is tonight. The game is scheduled for 7 o'clock. That's Uwharrie Charter and Mount Airy High School. In the 2A bracket, Burns High School has a 1-0 series lead over the 2-seed East Rutherford, with Burns taking a 9-6 win in game number 1. Game number 2 in this series, well, you guessed it, it's later on today. Another 7 o'clock start time in that one. As we head to the 3A bracket, we start to see a little bit of parity, might you say, in high school baseball. Yes, the 1 seed did make it to the regionals, but their opponent is the 10 seed Tuscola High School. Now, we did talk about them a little bit. They are out of Waynesville, North Carolina. That is a little bit farther west of Asheville. Well, they ended up winning game number 1 against East Rowan with a final score of 7-4. They were helped out by a 4-run explosion in the top of the 7th inning of that game number 1 as they went into the final frame down 4-3, put together 4 runs in that final inning, and they come out with a 7-4 victory in that game. Game number 2, taking on East Rowan. It'll be tonight, 7 o'clock. It seems all these schools beginning at 7 o'clock tonight. And in the 4A, we still have some other parity going on. The biggest thing in the 4A bracket comes out of the East, actually, where the 1 seed Ashley High School is taking on number 22, Cardinal Gibbons. Only 32 teams make the field. And number 22, Cardinal Gibbons, well, they're in the regionals. Unfortunately, they dropped their first game against Ashley High School, 3-2 being the final score of that one. But it is a very big positive for them as they were able to hang with Ashley. And, they're down 1-0. They got to win 2 in a row if they want to go to the state championship game. But it's nice to see a 22 seed making a deep run in these playoffs. A little closer to back home here on the west side of the bracket, you have the number 1 seed TC Robertson with a 1-0 series lead over Charlotte Catholic. TC Robertson won that game number 1 13-0. So Charlotte Catholic really looking to turn it around here in the next game. With those game number 2s, we also have some softball game number 2s as well. We are going to talk about that on the other side of the commercial break, as well as a look at the 4th round of women's high school soccer playoffs. Games are tonight. There's a lot of high school playoffs going on tonight, so make sure you are finding where your school is playing and go out there and support them. Don't go anywhere, though. Not yet, because these games aren't until later. You're going to finish your day right here with me on the scoreboard, and then you can go watch these games. We got a long way to go. So don't go anywhere. You're listening to the scoreboard, and we are back right after this. You know, the more I think about softball playoffs and these regional games that we're seeing in the softball brackets, especially on the west side of the state, I just don't understand why almost every series is a 4 seed versus a 2 seed. It just seems weird to me. The 1 seed lost in every single 4th round matchup in women's soccer or in softball. Well, yeah, that's the answer. Yes, that did happen in the 4th round in the west part of the bracket. Every single 1 seed lost in the 4th round. I find that interesting. And only one of the 2 seeds lost, by the way. Only one 2 seed is not in the finals here. That was Mooresville softball. They lost in the 3rd round to Alexander Central 4-1. Anyway, let's start with the 1A bracket because we are already 1 game in. And boy, East Wilkes, the 2 seed, they won 4-0 against Robbinsville High School in game number 1. Game number 2 in this series, well, yeah, it is later on tomorrow, actually. Not today. I know, you might have been tricked a little bit. Now, some of these games are today, some of these games are tomorrow, depending on whether it's the East bracket or what east side of the state or the west side of the state. But for this softball matchup, the 1A, East Wilkes and Robbinsville, it's going to be tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Game number 1, like I said, goes to East Wilkes. So they have the 1-0 series lead. In the 2A bracket, you have Southwestern Randolph High School, the Cougars, taking on North Stanley. Game number 1 and game number 2 have been completed in this series, with game number 3 scheduled for Saturday. Had to make sure I had my days correct. Yesterday was game 2 in this matchup, and, well, game number 1 was a 1-0 win for North Stanley. Game number 2 was a 2-1 win for Southwest Randolph. The interesting thing about both of these games, they each went into extra innings. Game number 1 went 8 innings, and get this, game number 2, 13 innings. Yeah, you heard me right. It was a 13-inning game in the 2A women's softball matchup. They go to a winner-take-all game 3 on Saturday. That is the 4 seed Southwest Randolph and the 2 seed North Stanley. The 3A bracket has Piedmont and Kings Mountain facing off against each other. Yes, you guessed it. That's a 4 and a 2 seed taking on each other. Game 2 in this series is tonight at 6:30. Game number 1 was won by Piedmont High School, so they have the 1-0 series lead. And last but not least, the 4A bracket. Yes, the 4A big schools. Northwest Guilford taking on Weddington High School. Game number 2 in that series, set for tonight at 6 o'clock, so immediately following the scoreboard. Game number 1 was a close one in that series. Weddington grabbed a run in the 1st inning, and that was it, as they pitched a 1-hitter against Northwest Guilford to take game number 1 in that series. That is how the 4A brackets rack up. And that is your update on softball playoffs. Looking at the women's soccer brackets, we are in the 4th round. So the winners move on to regionals, which will be taking place a little later on next week. In the 1A bracket, you have the 12 seed, the underdog of the bracket, Christ the King High School, taking on number 1 seed, Mountain Island Charter. That game is tonight at 6 p.m. Also, in the 1A bracket, you have number 3 Uwari Charter taking on number 2 Polk County. The 2A bracket sees your number 1 seed Pine Lake Prep down in Mooresville battling against Brevard High School, the 12 seed. They were able to upset their opponent, West Davidson, in the third round in a shootout to get the win there. And then you also have the 6th seed, Wheatmore High School. They're battling against Hendersonville, the 2 seed. That Pine Lake game, by the way, in case you want to know, tonight at 6 o'clock. 3A regional matchup see the 2 seed North Davidson taking on the number 6 seed Lake Norman Charter. Lake Norman Charter has had some run here in the spring. A lot of their schools moving forward through the playoffs. You have Hit Britain High School, the 1 seed. Well, they won against Atkins High School. And yesterday, they played South Point High School and lost. So Hit Britain, the 1 seed, will not be going to the regionals. We already have one of our regionals there. It would be the 4 seed, South Point High School, in the 3A bracket. And lastly, we go to the 4A schools. Mooresville High School is the 8 seed. They beat the 1 seed, Watauga High School, in double overtime to advance to this 4th round game against Asheville, who is the 5 seed. And you also have a couple of other schools that have high rankings. Number 6, Marvin Ridge, not that highly ranked. Myers Park, number 26. Yes, 26th ranked. They are in this 4th round matchup against Marvin Ridge High School. That game later on today. That is how your high school sports stack up. Tomorrow, we should be able to let you know a lot more about possible state championship matchups in baseball and softball, depending on if we're going to have game 3s or not. Some of these series are going to drag a little bit longer into the weekend. Some of them are going to be wrapped up later on tonight. So tomorrow, we will be able to let you know if there's going to be any do or die game 3s that are going to be taking place. Yes, I said game 3. It's a best of 3 series, so first team to win 2 games. Let's move on to the NASCAR Cup Series. Sunday at 6 o'clock is the Coca-Cola 600. Yes, 6 o'clock. Now, if you want to catch that race here on WSIC, you absolutely can. Coverage of that race is going to begin at 5 o'clock, and this week it is broadcast by PRN, the Performance Racing Network. So it is a busy schedule for NASCAR at Charlotte this weekend, starting with, there's a lot of action on track tomorrow. Things start at 11:30. You have practice for the ARCA Menard Series at 11:30, and then at 12:40, qualifying for ARCA. Then immediately following that, you have the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series with a practice session before they qualify at 2 o'clock. The Xfinity Series then gets their practice and qualifying in at 3:30 and 4 o'clock. And then Friday night at 6, it's the General Tire 150, broadcast by MRN, the Motor Racing Network. And then at 8:30, the Craftsman Truck Series will take the stage for the North Carolina Education Lottery 200. If you want to watch those, you can do so on Fox Sports 1. But if you want to listen to those races, maybe you're not near a TV, get the WSIC News app, because the ARCA and the truck race will be broadcast right here immediately following the scoreboard tomorrow. Don't miss it. And in case you haven't heard, WSIC is also going to be carrying the Indy 500 on Sunday and the Coca-Cola 600 on Sunday. Granted, those races actually take place. Some of you may think that Indianapolis Motor Speedway is in Indianapolis. Well, no, it's actually not. It's in its own spot with its own zip code, by the way. Speedway, Indiana. Weather forecast for Sunday. The day starts out okay, but even before we get to noon, the chance of rain skyrockets. Not only is the chance of rain high throughout the day on Sunday, but it doesn't die down until afternoon on Monday. We could have a later Indianapolis 500 on a Monday. And I want to talk about, on the other side of this commercial break, I want to talk about comparing the Brickyard, the Indianapolis 500, to the Coca-Cola 600. What is Kyle Larson going to do? Something's going to get rained out. How does he handle this? Is he still going to do both? We'll talk about this on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Scoreboard. 844 Studio 4 is the phone number. Don't go anywhere. We are back after this.
Keep it right here. We'll have more of the Scoreboard with Joe Berg in just a moment. From speed.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. It is the Scoreboard, 844 Studio 4. We're tracking some rain, possibly heading to Indianapolis Motor Speedway this weekend. Not only is there going to be rain there, but I'm looking out the window here, and I see some raindrops here at the WSIC Studios in Statesville. Don't worry, we're not running the Indy 500 here or the Coke 600. So I'll get it home just safe. I'll be fine. You know who won't be fine is Kyle Larson. I would be very disappointed if I was Kyle Larson and it ends up raining in Indianapolis on Sunday. Here's the latest. After rampant speculation in recent weeks, whether Tony Kanaan would come out of his IndyCar retirement, Arrow McLaren have decided to keep the 500 winner on standby, the team confirmed. Yes, if Kyle Larson cannot race, it seems like Tony Kanaan, IndyCar legend, will be in the car. Here's what happened. IMS and IndyCar were understood to have held a tentative 1-hour block of track time Thursday afternoon for Tony Kanaan to complete a 2-stage 30-lap veteran refresher that would make him eligible to fill in for Larson should a rain delay to the start of the 500 force Rick Hendrick to pull the NASCAR points leader out and take him to Charlotte. He's not going to miss Charlotte. He will not miss that race because, well, there's this thing called the playoffs in NASCAR. And, well, in order to make the playoffs, you have to race in every single race. And Kyle Larson, with a win on the year already, is locked into those playoffs. If he misses, a race, he has no eligibility for the playoffs. Now, we've talked about this before. What was it? Last year. Last year, Chase Elliott broke his leg. NASCAR gave him a waiver and said, if you make the points, if you win a race, if you do what you need to do to make the playoffs, we will let you into the playoffs. Then he got suspended for wrecking Denny Hamlin, right rear hooking that driver. And NASCAR said, no, it's okay. We already gave you a waiver. So, yeah, you're fine. I would hope that NASCAR is smart enough to say, you know what? Maybe Larson misses the first few laps of the 600, which I don't think is going to happen. Personally, I think the 500 is going to be run on Monday. Most likely late afternoon. But he has to be there. And the thing about NASCAR, and we've seen this happen before, most notably was Eric Almirola. He filled in for Denny Hamlin at Richmond one year, I believe. It was Richmond in the Xfinity Series. Because Eric Almirola started the race, the driver's points went to him. Now, he started the race, but Denny Hamlin ended up taking over the car. And the win, Denny Hamlin did win that race, was credited to Eric Almirola because he's the one who started the race in the car. So it's not like if you're Rick Hendrick, you could say, okay, you know what? Jeff Gordon, go start this 600, run 50 laps until Larson gets here, and then we'll put Larson in the car. Because, well, if it was Jeff, and I'm just threw a name out there, there's no way Jeff Gordon comes back to NASCAR. He would then be credited with however many points are earned in that race. Now, the driver's standings are different than the owner's standings, and maybe if that's a scenario, that's why Hendrick would put somebody else in that car so that you still get the owner's points. But I don't see that happening. I think, and honestly, I don't know if you're going to want Larson at Indianapolis. With the threat of severe thunderstorms, I would be a little concerned that he couldn't fly. Now, I'm not a pilot, so I don't know how that works. If it's severe thunderstorms, if it's severe enough, I'm sure you cannot take off. I'm sure there's a limitation to how much winds there could. Maybe there's somebody who flies planes in our audience. Let me know how Kyle Larson, if you're listening and you know something about planes or you're a pilot, let me know. Can Kyle Larson take off from Indianapolis in a thunderstorm? Does it depend how bad it is? Is there like a formula for when it's a green light versus a red light? I don't know these things. That's why, sometimes I need help from you, the listeners. I don't know. Maybe there is a pilot out there listening. Call me up. 844-788-3464. Right now, Kyle Larson is the favorite to win the Coca-Cola 600. I find that fascinating, considering he's going to be racing 1,100 miles, possibly. But Kyle Larson is your favorite for the Coke 600. Denny Hamlin and Tyler Reddick, second and third favorites. Now, only one driver has ever completed all 1,100 miles of the double, and that was Tony Stewart when he finished, I believe, third at Indy and sixth in the 600. I'm pretty sure his combined results were under 10. So it's a record, obviously. And it's something that Kyle Larson has a chance to break. Look, Kyle Larson is the greatest race car driver of this generation. He is. He is a wheelman. Anything with a steering wheel, an engine, and four wheels, he will excel at it. I don't know. Maybe if you put him on a or a motorcycle, maybe he would excel at that too. Formula One car, that still has four wheels, but you got to turn right in those. I don't know. What I do know is that he is the most talented driver right now in motorsports, and it would be a real shame if Larson does not end up racing at Indianapolis, especially considering he qualified fifth for the race. He had a great qualifying effort. And it all could be for naught because of this thing called Mother Nature. I thought Mother Nature had a beef with NASCAR, not with IndyCar. The last time an IndyCar race had a rain-shortened Indy 500, it was 2007. So it has been a while, but I would like for them to get the entire race in. We might have to wait until Monday for that to happen, though. So Kyle Larson, maybe not racing at Indianapolis this weekend. If I'm Rick Hendrick, I have a hard time sending him there. I do. We'll see what happens. Final commercial break of the day. When we return, talk some NHL playoffs, some NBA playoffs, get this day in sports history, and send you off into the night. Don't go anywhere. One more segment. We are back after this.
Keep it right here. We'll have more of The Scoreboard with Joe Berg continues now on 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
You know, you can fit like, I don't know, maybe 6 Churchill Downs inside of Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Have you ever seen the graphic of everything that can fit inside of this facility? You can fit all of the Vatican City. An entire country can fit inside of Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And you'd still have room for Yankee Stadium, the Taj Mahal, Churchill Downs, the Rose Bowl Stadium, the Roman Coliseum, Liberty Island, and the White House. Yeah, it's a big facility. You could fit all of that comfortably inside of Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's got its own zip code. But we might not be racing there on Sunday. Now, I've been trying to see what the deal is if Rick Hendrick really is going to pull Kyle Larson out just in case it does rain. Well, here's the quote from the boss man himself. We've talked about it many times, and we know we need to be at Charlotte for the points. We're just going to let it play out, and we'll make that decision Sunday. It would be very hard to pull him out of Indianapolis. It would be disappointing because of all the effort that everyone put in. We've got a tremendous amount of folks there at Indy, and he's in such a good position, it would be extremely hard. The decision will fall to Rick Hendrick. Until then, maybe we get a miracle and the rain doesn't happen. Now, Larson has said that he hopes it just gets rained out, because he will go there on Monday and do the race, which is great. But man, oh man, what a mess. It's so sad, too. I've been looking forward to this for a couple of years now, since we've known Larson was going to do the double. And Mother Nature does not want to cooperate with us. Oh, man. I'm going to be very disappointed if he does not end up racing. But we'll see. 844 Studio 4 is the phone number. We are in the final segment here on the Scoreboard on this wonderful Thursday. We're going to get into the NHL and NBA right now, starting with the NBA, as last night we had game number 1 between the Mavericks and the Timberwolves. Here's all I'm going to say. Hit your free throws. Please make your free throws, because that was the difference in the game last night. So, final score last night, 108-105. The Dallas Mavericks take the win. As a team, the Dallas Mavericks were 16 for 17 in free throws. The Minnesota Timberwolves, 11 of 18. They missed 7 free throws. They lost by 3. There you go. There's the math right there. That's where you lost the game. And I don't get it. I don't understand how nobody can hit a free throw. Now, not nobody, but like, it's free. It's called a free throw because it is free. It is literally free points. Nobody guarding you. It's just you standing at the line, shooting. And you're a professional NBA player. You're telling me you can't make a free throw? Practice, maybe. Maybe just a little bit more practice. I would be livid if I was an NBA coach and we lost because of free throws. 61% from the free throw line, just not going to cut it. Mike Conley going 1 for 4 from the line. Yeah, that's not going to cut it. By the way, Mike Conley, 30 minutes played, he only put up 6 points. The terrific duo of Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic combined for 63 of Dallas's 108 total points. So the Dallas Mavericks take the 1-0 series lead. I don't have a rooting interest in this. I will be happy with whoever wins this series because there's so many good players on both of those teams. But, we always focus on the superstars, Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving as well. And for Minnesota, you got Anthony Edwards, who has had a breakout year. He put up 19 points last night. Also, Karl Anthony Towns. We've known Cat for a while now as he's got 8 years experience. He was the number 1 pick back in 2015. And he was from Kentucky. If you guys remember that team. That was a good team with Karl Anthony Towns on that Kentucky team. But they're going to have to hit their free throws if they're going to win this series. I mean, when it comes down to this point in the year, free throws, free throws, free throws. You're going to hear me say it a lot because you have to make them. It is one of the most infuriating things when you see a team struggle from the line. And it's not like the Dallas fans were being super loud during the Minnesota free throws. No, this game was in Minnesota. And yet the Timberwolves, they still could not make their free throws. And they end up losing game number 1, 108-105. Game number 2 of that series is tomorrow, but we have a game 2 tonight. I'm sorry. Yes, a game 2 tonight. The Indiana Pacers and the Boston Celtics. Remember game number 1? Boston got out to an early lead. The Pacers came back. They ended up taking the lead late in that game, but Boston was able to recover. They force overtime, and in overtime, Boston comes away with the victory. I have a feeling that this series is going to get tied up tonight. There's something about this Pacers team. They're not my favorite. I mean, they beat the Knicks, and if you know me, I'm a Knicks fan. So I'm not happy with them. I don't like them or anything like that, but they're a really good team. And I just don't think that they're going to move over very easily here for Boston. Plus, Boston's track record in the past 5 years, I'm not betting on them to do anything. I've said it 3 times now, maybe. I don't even know. This is the year for you, Boston. I'm not a fan of your team, but, you better win this year. And if you don't, if I'm the GM, I'm blowing it up and I'm starting over because obviously this core would not be able to get it done. 8 o'clock tonight, the Indiana Pacers and the Boston Celtics. In the NHL last night, the Florida Panthers and the New York Rangers squared off in game number 1. The Panthers coming away with the shutout victory in this one, 3-0. The final score. I know you Hurricanes fans are probably torn on who to root for this series. Panthers eliminating the Hurricanes in the conference finals last year. The Rangers in the second round this year. And also, don't forget 2022. Yeah, that was a thing as well. 844 Studio 4. That's 844-788-3464. Let me know if you're a Hurricanes fan. What team are you rooting for here in the Eastern Conference Finals? Or are you even watching? Honestly, now that the Hurricanes are done, hockey's over. Not a fan of hockey anymore. Fair weather fans, is that what we're saying? Your team's doing good, so I'll watch. Bad luck. 844-788-3464. So the New York Rangers fall in game number 1. That's my team, the New York Rangers. I am a Ranger fan. I don't know if I've made that very clear, but yeah, I'm a Ranger fan. Sorry we eliminated the Hurricanes. I don't really know what to tell you. You lost. Tonight, game number 1 of the Western Conference Finals. It'll be the Edmonton Oilers on the road taking on the Dallas Stars. I'll tell you what, the Stars are a massive favorite in this game. In the series, most, if not all of the money is on Dallas to win this series. If it were me betting, I would say Dallas in 6. When you have Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Zach Hyman on your team, you can't count Edmonton out. But I get it. Dallas is a better team. They are. But it is hockey, so you really never know. Wrapping up the day with some This Day in sports history. It was on this day in 1926. Chicago Cubs' Hack Wilson was the first player to hit a home run off the Wrigley Field scoreboard. Yes, off of the scoreboard. That was this day, 1926. Also, on this day, actually, it was not that long ago, the PGA Championship. Phil Mickelson became the oldest major winner in history at the age of 50. He won his 6th major by 2 strokes over Brooks Koepka that day. That was on this day in 2021, not that long ago. And also, last but not least, on this day, the Chicago Blackhawks beat the San Jose Sharks in a sweep in the Western Conference Finals, 4-0. That was on this day in 2010. Thanks, everyone, for tuning into the Scoreboard today. I'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. Until then, have a great night, everyone.
Serving you better than ever before. 105.9 100.